Hello everyone. In this video I want to talk a little bit about hypnosis and meditation. There's a little bit of information thrown in at the book at the end, and so I'm kind of throwing it in at the end as well. We will cover some information about meditation in chapter 14 on stress and health. But hypnosis is interesting, and it is definitely a distinct level of consciousness. When you're hypnotized, you're not a zombie. You're not unaware of what's going on around you, and you're not totally under the control of the hypnotist at all. But your attention is really narrowed, and you're much more open to suggestion when you're in a hypnotic state. But it's a natural state. It's kind of like when you're daydreaming. And if you've ever daydreamed, you're sort of checked out to what's going on around you, but you can quickly become aware of what's going on around you, and you're still somewhat aware of what's going on around you. You're not completely unconscious. And the same thing is the true case with hypnosis. Hypnosis is not magical, and it's not like somebody can come by and hypnotize you and force you to do crazy stuff. You actually have to participate in order to be hypnotized. So you have to be consciously trying to focus and also trying to get into a hypnotic state as well. We don't use a watch here that goes back and forth to hypnotize people. It can be used, but you can actually hypnotize people with your voice. And often psychologists and counselors that are trained in hypnosis will just use their voice to get you to a more trance-like or hypnotic state. And that's all done with your awareness and your agreement to doing it. You don't go into a counselor or psychologist and they just hypnotize you without telling you. They would absolutely tell you beforehand, and they should ethically tell you beforehand. So most people can be hypnotized, but really only about 4 out of 10 people are really considered good subjects for hypnosis. Some people, especially people that are maybe anxious or kind of think a lot or tightly wound, kind of, I think of myself this way, are more difficult to hypnotize. So people that are more creative, more open to suggestion, less resistant to hypnosis are definitely easier to hypnotize. And often when you see a stage hypnotist, one of the things they're looking for is somebody that is an easier person to hypnotize. And you think about it, if somebody's volunteering to be hypnotized in a crowd of people at the state fair or wherever it is, they're already probably an extrovert, and they're willing accomplices here, and they're willing to be hypnotized. And so even if that hypnotist gets them to act like a duck or whatever they do, they're participating in that, and it's not totally out of the realm of what they would normally do. But hypnosis can be really beneficial, and it is something that is used a lot in psychology and in counseling, and it really can be effective in things like pain relief, weight loss, stopping smoking, and even athletic performance. So it produces this concentrated state of awareness that can really be helpful in changing more ingrained patterns of behavior. This isn't very exciting necessarily, but it makes us much more open to suggestion. A lot of times if a counselor or psychologist or even a friend or family member makes suggestions to you about how to handle a situation, we think of all the reasons why those are bad suggestions, why we don't want to do that, why we can't do that. When you're in a hypnotic trance, those barriers aren't there, those blocks aren't there. You just really take in the information and actually can use that information, and you don't think about all the reasons why it's not going to work. So that's how hypnosis can really break through resistance. We all tend to be resistant, and we tend to kind of think rationally and sort of discount information. It's too simple, it's too easy, it couldn't fix my problem. And it definitely can tap into the unconscious mind. Freud was really interested in hypnosis early on. Hypnosis was a really popular thing in his time. And so he did use it for a brief period of time, but he felt like he was able to get information just through psychoanalysis, just through listening to patients talk, rather than using hypnosis. Hypnosis sometimes is used in criminal cases to try to enhance memory retrieval of witnesses to a crime that are having difficulty remembering details, but they did witness the crime. And it can be really useful in just giving investigators leads in cases, but it can really produce false memories, and that's why it's not admissible in court. Unfortunately, sometimes the hypnotist or the interviewer can actually implant ideas and memories that they unintentionally, just by the way they ask a question. So they have to be really careful about that. And most people that do hypnosis for criminal investigations are very aware of this and very careful about this. So oftentimes they can really help people remember details of a crime when there's no other way to get that information. So, usually when people are under awareness, they're in control. The person who's hypnotizing them is not in control, and you cannot get stuck in a hypnotic trance. So this movie Get Out, if you've seen this at all, the mother-in-law, I guess I don't know if you call her the mother-in-law, but um, is a hypnotist and hypnotizes him, kind of puts him in a trance-like state, and also has all these people on the property that are in this sort of zombie-like state, although I guess they had brain transplants. It gets a little weird, this movie. Kind of started out good, and then it kind of got weird. But it's definitely not an accurate depiction of how you hypnotize somebody or what you can, how a person behaves when they're in a hypnotic trance. You cannot get stuck in a hypnotic trance. So hypnosis is a really interesting thing. It's definitely used by psychologists and counselors. Not every psychologist or every counselor will use hypnosis, but there definitely are professionals that specialize in hypnosis. However, there are people that call themselves hypnotists that don't have any psychological training at all, that they just have training in how to hypnotize people. And you can actually go online and get trainings on how to hypnotize people and call yourself a hypnotist, but you have no psychological training. So make sure, if you're interested in being hypnotized, that you go to a professional. Meditation is another level of consciousness that's really interesting. It's not quite as deep a level of consciousness or deep a trance as hypnosis is. And it depends on how long you meditate, how good you are at meditating, how practiced you are at meditation. Meditation definitely takes practice to get really good at it. If you've ever tried to sit down and meditate, a lot of people feel like, oh, it's not working, because your mind tends to wander and start thinking about all the other stuff you got to do, and you have to kind of force yourself to focus again and relax and just focus on your breathing. And it takes practice to do that, and the more you meditate, the less you have to do that. But it doesn't mean that it's not working if you're having other thoughts and other things going on. What it means is just you're not practiced at it, and you're not getting to a really deep level of consciousness, but that's okay. It's still really beneficial. Meditation can help lower your heart rate, lower your blood pressure, relieve muscle tension, reduce anxiety. Often people who suffer from anxiety, counselors and therapists recommend that they meditate. And what meditation can do is just reduce your overall level of anxiety, which can be really helpful for people that suffer from anxiety, and it can just enhance all of our well-being. We often don't slow down enough to really think about our thoughts and what's going on in our life, and paying attention to and being aware of what's going on around us. So mindfulness is another technique that is really popular right now, and it's often you see it in combination with meditation as well. So there's lots of mindfulness meditations, and mindfulness is just really focusing on the present moment, being consciously aware of your thoughts and your feelings, really focusing on those thoughts and those feelings, and focusing on what's going on around you. It can really help people reduce rumination. I had a student, there was a student in the pack-back discussion that said, why is it that our mind picks out embarrassing moments in life and memories that we have and sort of just thinks about it over and over again, and then we feel horrible, right? That's called rumination, and our mind does that for whatever reason. Is we can get stuck on a thought or a negative event and just ruminate about it, just think about it over and over again. And mindfulness can help us slow down that process, pay attention to that thought, and then get rid of that thought because those thoughts are not useful. I don't know why our mind picks out things like that. Sometimes our memories get triggered by events or things that are going on around us. But mindfulness can really help you to, pay attention to those thoughts and not get stuck on those particular thoughts. Certainly, it helps reduce stress, can help us, focus better, and really, when we're mindful, we're less emotionally reactive to things. We can stop and really think it through before we react to something. We can also become more satisfied with our relationships and really take time to think about the other person's perspective and our own perspective, um, rather than just responding. Because a lot of times we kind of rush through life. We don't really notice everything that's going on around us, and we don't really think about our reactions. We just sort of react to things, where mindfulness really asks you to take your time and really think things through. So the last thing I'm going to talk about here is just some guided meditations apps. In chapter 14, I'm giving you an assignment to actually meditate. So this is just something, if you're interested in doing it now, I'd recommend it. It really can help just lower your overall level of stress and really help you to be more mindful, more aware of what's going on around you. So thank you for listening, and we'll talk soon.